We live, yep.
Skeleton Crew.
There we go. We are live. Stone Guy 223. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We've got the Yankee Marshal with us.
Yep.
Got just Dano.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
And we've got the Tack Daddy.
I'll cover the fry station.
Right.
Before we get started on the topic tonight, I just want to share with everyone that Kevin has the most homoerotic taste in professional wrestlers that I've ever heard from a grown man in my entire life.
I didn't even tell you about Coco Beware or Leaping Lanny Poffo.
No. But you told me enough.
Jesus. I would have saved that. I wouldn't have shared that.
Hey, Leaping Lanny Poffo, that's Macho Man's brother.
Some things just need to be kept secret there, Kev.
All right, I'll pipe down.
We're all talking about our favorite wrestlers like Goldust and stuff, and he's talking like about, have you seen Seth Rollins with his shirt off?
What about have you seen the little mule guy that goes around with the Spanish dudes?
Oh, yeah, El Toro or whatever his name is.
Isn't that down in Tijuana?
No, this is WWE. My son loved that. We went and saw the WWE the other night. In fact, I checked in on one of the live chats from a WWE event once, and they thought I was at like an NSYNC concert or something. But
do they still wear the face mask like the Spanish wrestlers?
Oh yeah, it's just Epico and Primo, Carlito's brother and cousin. But they've rebranded them as like the Matadors or something, and they got this little guy dressed. They got a midget dressed as a bull that runs around with them.
Oh, that's politically correct, huh?
He charges them, and they go, "Ole!"
Yep.
Nice.
Welcome to the gun chat.
Yep. Wrestling/gun chat. So first off, it's been kind of a regular thing for me to talk about Noir first. Did anybody watch Noir?
I did.
All right.
I haven't seen it yet. I keep saying I'm going to watch it, and then I forget all about it after the chat and never watch it.
Dude, he took his shirt off. It was unbelievable. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Say, damn, I missed that. Thank God. Out of today it was Sunday's episode, but I always watch it when it comes on, when he posted on his channel. I don't ever catch the Sunday night airing of it, but this episode was great, man. They finally, no real commercial, no real political speech. It was really all about shooting and training, and I don't know. They're so all over the place with this fucking show. I mean, it's like every time I start bad mouthing them, they change their whole format.
Is it worth rechecking out again?
Oh yeah, definitely. At least this, like I said, this episode was fantastic. Pretty much the whole episode was.
Hold on. You like this one because they dressed up Amy like your fantasy, like you've been waiting to see her dressed up with her hair up and with the hot for teacher glasses.
Yeah, the little psychologist
thing. Come on, that's what you're excited about.
Amy is definitely
training.
They would have half the viewers they have if Amy wasn't involved. She's
They did still have someone with yoga pants on the range with them.
Oh, I think that's a prerequisite at this point. That's the only constant in the last three or four episodes. They've had the what the hell is that guy's name? The race car driver dude.
Laporte.
Laporte, yeah, thank you. They're doing a range day. Training / run and gun, fun, competition, range day. So that's been a constant, like I said, the last 3 or 4 episodes, and that's fantastic because that does give people some good ideas.
It's been a constant, but it's been a constant of Laporte, Noir, Amy, and some random chick that you
want to sleep with.
Basically, that's hot, that's attractive, and you're wondering whether or not he's, come on, let's get real here. That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if Seth Rollins is in the house.
You're wondering which one's sleeping with who?
No. Yeah. Again, it's cool. I enjoy the show, man. I have nothing bad to say. But if we're talking about it, I'll talk about it. I don't know. I still feel like that when it's him sitting down with her, that's the most awkward part. When it's just the two of them in the studio. To me, that's the most forced thing out of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I don't know if they're. I don't see him reading like a teleprompter. I don't think it's scripted per se. I think they may be, they may have some dialogue that they go over, and then it's kind of ad libbed in the actual live broadcast, maybe, or the screening. But I don't know, because it seems like they lose. Sometimes they lose their spot, or it's forced, or they just make up shit. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, I guess, because then it doesn't seem like they're reading lines or they're reading a script.
No, I think that the show, again, the free flowingness of it is very obvious, and that's cool. But let's see, they started with him just kind of talking in the studio, then they went to the range, then something else happened, then they ended up with him doing his 40 rant.
Right.
What else was in there that I missed? Because it was long. It was over 35 minutes, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's what's so weird. That's the other thing. Like I said, besides being all over the place with the actual format of the show, at least his uploads on his channel, some have been like 25 minutes, others have been 32. This one was like 43 minutes. So I don't know if it's just editing that's keeping, giving the differing time slots, but
what guns did they feature? I know they did the MP22 at the range, but what guns did he talk about?
That was really it, and that's what I was saying. The big thing and kind of what inspired my topic tonight that we'll get to. Just bear with us here, but the whole training aspect. He took a training course. I think it was at Trident Response. Where he did an
the simunition part. That's what it was.
Right. It was the simunition. It was Trident, right? Trident Response Group.
Something like that. I'm assuming they're utilizing the local
right.
where they are. Yeah.
Exactly. So he did a training simunition scenario for a home invasion, and talked a little bit to the guy that runs that place and about how important training is and different things like that. So that's what got me, the title of my chat tonight is Do You Even Train, Bro? Like, to kind of talk about that, touch on the training aspect of it. But, so that was, to me, the show is more what I would have liked to seen from the start. But there again, I mean, obviously they're not just appealing to me. But tonight's episode was fantastic, I thought.
I did happen to catch the 40 rant, and I kind of do like the idea of putting a comedic segment into it where it's about guns, but it's funny. And
well, see, that's the first time they've really done anything like that.
Nope, I don't agree with that. Comedy and guns don't go together.
Okay. But in fact, I liked it so much that I put a link over at Gun Channels for a certain somebody that just happens to love the 40. I think we might recognize his name, but I don't know. One of those things.
I love it. I love the 40.
Tack Daddy only carries a 40 because
Well, you know why he carries a 40.
Small penis.
Compensation.
No, don't worry though. It looks proportional on you though.
No.
Baby dick's only a baby dick if it's on someone that's giant sized. I mean, if it's on you, it's okay.
That's one way to look at it, Tack.
They call it a baby arm, but we'll have this discussion another time.
When I was in kindergarten, we had some flaminamide babies that were in there. We used to just call them Flipper.
Flipper babies.
Yeah.
We had part of this conversation the other night with G-Webs about 40, and
I thought that was a fantastic explanation he gave in Noir for 40.
Oh, and that's why I posted it over at Gun Channels, was for him.
Well, the other aspect of it is, well, what if you never started with 9? Then that whole argument goes to shit.
Sure.
So I never started with 9. I started right with 40. Why? It's just how
Well,
we
you
roll
started with 40, but 9 existed before the 40.
Correct.
Oh, I got barbecue sauce on my pants.
But I had no interest in it because it. Well, again, it's just it. it is what it is. To sit there and bash something and say, the pressure thing and all that stuff. Again, I'm not carrying any guns that I'm worried about blowing up because of their over-pressured 40 round.
No,
Right.
most of the ones I have are designed for it. Now, I don't want a gun that was designed for a 9 and then tried to, jury rigged to handle a 40. I want a gun they built from the ground up to be a 40. So.
Right. That's what we talked about the other night when we were talking about the pressure differences. I said nowadays that's never going to be an issue because the guns nowadays are built for the 40. They're built with the different tolerances and reinforced where they need to be, the supported chambers and different stuff like that.
What I love is people that will complain about the 40, but then they'll be like, and I carry my 9mm car and I carry plus P plus ammunition in it.
Right.
I'm like, well, that's way more dangerous than carrying a 40 with 40 caliber ammunition in it.
And again, I'm no engineer, nor other people claim things, but if they just look at the 2 rounds next to each other,
Okay, I'm doing it right now.
All right.
Hold on, wait. Really, wait, that's a 9 and a 380. Hold on. That's 9.
There's really not that huge of a difference when you're looking at this.
It's quite a bit fatter.
Well,
there's really not much of a difference ballistically when you
turn on my camera. There they are, right side by side.
Let me lock on you here, Yankee.
There they are, side by side. It's bigger.
But
and if you were asking a woman, she'd say that makes a difference.
I'm guessing what I'm saying. Holy shirt! I guess what I'm saying is, with today's manufacturing and the tolerances that they're using and the specs that they're using on these barrels and other things, you would think that the last thing that you'd be having to worry about is a 40 round being, quote, overpressured. Just again.
Right. And I don't think we have to worry about that now. I think that was the kind of the...
Well, how come everyone goes to overpressured as the first thing they say?
Because that was what spawned, that was what inspired the rumor to begin with, was that it is an overpressured round for what it is, but the industry has responded and made the guns appropriate to handle that cartridge. The cartridge itself is overpressured for what it is, but the guns that we shoot them in, it's never going to be an issue. I don't know.
I'm with you.
I thought the war explanation was pretty good, and like I said, this episode was all about the guns, all about training and getting people, bringing people information, and I don't know. To me, that's what something, sponsored by the NRA and put out for the general public should be about. It should be about getting information out and trying to get more people involved in shooting and the shooting sports. So
it certainly sounds like worth giving him a second shot for those who haven't. And I listened to the first 3 shows, and after the third one, I didn't quite see a learning curve, so I kind of gave up. But I think it certainly sounds from what you said like it's worth giving another shot.
Yeah, and I swear to God, I think they've got to be changing on the fly. I don't think these were pre-recorded shows that they're just rolling out. I think they're recording and changing based on viewer response and other things that they're working out, which is a great thing, because I think if they had went on the format and the dialogue that they had in the first couple shows, they'd be a horrible failure at this point.
It'll take them a while to get their groove. Like I said last time we talked about this, if you go back, like say you've got a favorite TV show you've been watching for 6 or 7 years, and it's, you're really into it, and you go back and watch the first year or 2, you're like, wow, this is unrecognizable from what it is now. Usually the characters aren't the same, etc. It takes a while for shows to get their groove, and then they evolve. So hopefully this will happen with this one too.
Yep. So that'll roll us into our actual topic tonight was training, because that simunition training he did was basically a scenario where he's laying in bed and the intruder came through the door into his bedroom and he had to
What was he wearing?
respond. Oh, he was full on with a face mask and
Not the
gear.
intruder, with the guy with
Yeah,
calling water.
Noir. Oh yeah, he was all tack. He had all his gear on too, because they were shooting actual simunition, so they had him protected, chest rig and a face mask, and he was tacticooled out with his GoPro on the helmet and all that shit. But it was interesting to hear the guy talk about people, the difference between people that just go shoot at the range and people that train. And so that begs the question of, and this is a little bit of playing devil's advocate, but in a way I am kind of for it. But should we require training for people that are going to conceal carry, not just people to own a gun?
Did we require education for people to have free speech?
Do they require it in Switzerland, Sweden,
No.
wherever they have guns?
That's neutral, right?
But with free speech, you cannot hurt yourself or someone else permanently.
Think about insurance companies that give discounts and give special privileges to people, especially young kids that have.
Insurance
Dano,
companies
I just said I stepped out of the room and I missed what Dano said. What did you say, Dano?
I just said that with free speech, you can't necessarily permanently injure or kill someone immediately.
Oh, more people have been killed through speech and hate speech and rhetoric in the history of the world than ever killed by the bullet of a gun.
I
Because
said
speech is what motivates that gun usually.
Well, I said immediately.
So let's not pretend free speech is not, because someone can say the wrong person can say the wrong thing and someone can go out and go on a rampage because of it.
Oh, sure. After the fact, you're absolutely right. I'm just talking about immediately. I mean, like, you can't pull back a bullet once the trigger's accidentally squeezed.
And this is just for the sake of conversation. People don't want people going, "Oh, you're anti-freedom, anti-bullet." No, the question
Stone Guy is anti-freedom. Just so everybody.
Obviously, I'm not saying we should be required to do anything before we have our constitutional rights. But
other than having to train before we can bear arms.
That's the thing. Well, that's the difference. If it's not. I'm not saying before it's a right to own a firearm, but
the right isn't the right isn't that you have the right to purchase and maintain a firearm. The right is you have the right to keep and bear.
Yeah, I understand the context or the verbiage, but
And where I live, you're allowed to go bang bang into the air and say, "Hey, I got a gun. Don't mess with me." It's a whole other topic we'll be talking about on Thursday.
I think, as far as, this is a bigger picture, if because there are several states that don't have reciprocity with other states simply because those states don't require any type of training before they're issued a concealed carry permit.
I think the best way to be solved that would be to eliminate all state training requirements on the right to keep and bear arms.
But that's not going to happen, so why not go the other way?
Yeah, why would we say that couldn't happen? It could happen. People 10 years ago said gay marriage would never happen. It's happened, so maybe we can get our right.
Win the lottery. It's just not very practical way to plan my return.
I get to be the anti-gunner next time when G-Webs does his chat. I get to play anti-gunner. So tonight I'm going to play the guy that calls Stone Guy on the fact that he hates guns and freedom.
All right. Well, I'm just playing the anti-gunner, just so in case all you fucking people watching this don't start PMing me saying what an asshole I am.
Why are you going to call him fucking people?
Do not PM him telling him what an asshole and how he hates freedom. Contact me and I will give you his phone number.
So this is just playing devil's advocate here. Because it stands to reason that the anti-gunners or people in general, the common sense lawmakers would say, why not require some kind of training so that everybody's familiar and proficient and safe, and there's some continuity among concealed carriers, that we all know they've been through some sort of training, so
Here's the thing.
they can all be safe.
It's all been fun up to this point, but let's be serious for 1 second. Now, I am someone that if you can show me a reason, I will usually be okay with something if it makes sense. Even if it's a little bit restrictive. If it makes sense, if it's in the better good, if it's something society can actually say, hey, this would benefit us, and it actually would benefit us, I'll usually go for it. But in my research of looking into training and the effects it has on the population within that state, states that have training requirements and states that don't, it's one of those things where you can look at states that have zero training requirement, like my state has zero training requirement. We don't have any higher rate of accident than states that require stricter training requirements or range time, etc. In fact, some states that have stricter rules on getting a CHL or carry license have higher rates of accidents than we do. So I've never been able to make a correlation in real-world statistics between mandatory training and safety with firearms. That's one of those things that you're either an idiot or you're not. You're either careless or you're not. A few hours of training is not going to change a careless person into a careful person. A few hours of training is not going to change a smart person or an idiot into a smart person. It doesn't seem to have any effect whatsoever. So therefore, I cannot in any way justify supporting any type of restriction or litmus test on exercising a constitutional right when I can see no justification for it.
There's your spot, G-Web.
I'd like to welcome gun websites who just jumped in.
You had to kick Yankee out because he had an opinion different than yours?
Oh, did he leave? Oh, there he goes. Oh, yeah, what's up with that? He's gonna make a statement and then leave before anybody can disagree with him.
I hit the wrong button again.
No, I mean, in all honesty, because this was brought up just for the sake of conversation. I think that's a fantastic way to rebut, the common sense lawmakers or an anti-gunner or someone saying, well, why isn't everybody required to have training? Why do we let people just go apply for a concealed carry permit with no training and nothing but a clean record? So, in all seriousness, I think what you said is a good kind of mission statement, or a good rebuttal for that.
I like to play devil's advocate for just a moment. For the protection of self and for the protection of others, we require people to prove their competency to drive. Now, I understand the difference between a privilege and a right. And I'm not arguing that point, but just for safety of self and safety of others, we have that requirement, and that's consistent from state to state.
Correct. You have to take a driving test to get a license.
Right.
Okay, but then I would say go back to when cars were invented, and was it that as soon as the first car rolled off the line in Germany, somebody over here said, let's pass a law, because that could be a dangerous thing in the future? Or were people allowed to just drive, however, if they could afford a car, they could drive up until, the 1940s before there was driver's licenses? And that was only because there was so many cars on the road that there was an actual issue that people needed to be, there was so many of them, they were causing accidents and they were actually causing a detriment to society, so then they enacted requirements.
Yeah, see, that's why I support driver's licenses, because they showed a need, they showed a benefit of training people to actually drive a car. Driving a car is not nearly as simple as operating a firearm, and they demonstrated a need. I support it, and plus, but I will have to disagree that it's this whole privilege versus right thing. Driving is not a privilege. Driving is a right. Your rights aren't limited to what is enumerated in the Constitution. The Constitution even says, you basically have the right to do anything that is a standard part of life, and driving is a standard part of life. So you do have a right to drive unless you lose that right.
Right. I didn't want to get into that particular part of it, but
see, that's a case where there's restrictions because they actually make sense. Whereas with the restrictions on training for firearms, there's no correlation between training and safety.
So you do believe in common sense?
Yeah, that's what I said. My whole spiel earlier was like, if someone can show me a reason for something, I will consider it. But if
Well,
the reason isn't there, I won't even consider it.
the common sense thing, though, is one of those walking on thin ice could be a trap thing.
That's why I say it's got to be validated. It's got to be validated.
It's not just common sense. You can't say, "Oh, well, driver's license, the need for a driver's license isn't common sense. It was a reaction to a problem." So you can't say after the fact, "Oh, that was common sense." Well, no, it was just, some people probably really didn't like the idea that you had to get a driver's license.
Oh no, there was quite a bit of kerfuffle.
I could see the auntie saying it's a common sense reaction to what was going on. I mean, you know how they twist things.
Well, I know. I agree that after the fact, 2020 says, yeah, that was common sense. But I'm saying it wasn't necessarily motivated by or justified because of common sense, or what most people would consider common sense. But just a rational reaction to a issue of danger or whatever. But there's no danger here. People have been carrying concealed firearms since at least the early 1900s, probably long before that.
G Web's dog agreed.
He just doesn't like fascists. He can smell fascists.
It's bad enough that you called me a fascist in the side chat, and now you're putting it out there for the whole world to hear.
No, Stone Guy. Stone fascist.
You're both fascists.
the man who requires statues to be made of his efforts.
I can't spell fascist.
One of you is a
in the side
fascist,
chat.
one is a Marxist. We'll have to determine which later.
Yep. Okay, but getting back to in all seriousness, as far as training in general, not required. We'll get away from that. That was just a fun little poke at the satire, if you will. But training in general, the guy from Trident Group made a good point where the difference between people that just go to the range and shoot a gun and people that actively seek out training for self-defense. What do you think about that? What's your thought on the training aspect of preparing yourself for that 1% chance that you might have to use your firearm?
Well,
I'll take this one, Mike.
I've edited that I just keep saying I'm going to put it out there, but it's a lot of images and charts, and it's going to be forever to fucking edit it. But like I say, in real world studies and looking at people that have defended themselves with firearms, it's not the little things that get people, it's the big things. Almost always the big things that cause people harm. And just being prepared, just being in the right mindset, just having a gun, and that 1% chance you're ever going to need your gun, out of that 1% chance, just having the firearm, just knowing the basics of how to use it is going to win 99% of the time. So you're basically, anything you do beyond that is good. It's always good to know something. It's never better to not know something as far as a skill goes. I mean, you can never have too many skills. So it's always a good thing to train and build your skills, especially in the effect of building your confidence. But you have to understand that the guy that just buys a gun and goes to the range and knows how to use it is 99.9% as prepared as the guy that devotes his life to knowing how to use it for the types of situations that civilians are going to meet in their daily life. Now, if you're a mercenary for hire, that's a different story. But just civilian life, you're putting 1,000 times more effort into 1/10 of 1% more gain, kind of a thing. And then you have to just decide, is that worth it to you?
I don't agree with that on one level. No one can prepare. No one knows if everything's ever going to happen to them. But everyone that it ever has happened to will tell you that it wasn't what they thought was going to happen. Meaning, even the most prepared are there. However, if you look at like what Noir did on the show, where he said, I wasn't finding the front sight post. I wasn't, again, double checking a double-handed grip. I was literally going back to going back to instinct and this, that, and the other. And to say that people who do training and have that muscle memory more ingrained than the average guy who, again, buys a gun, puts it in decides to carry or whatever, but only goes to the range twice a year, to say that the people that are training have no significant advantage is not
Statistically
accurate.
accurate. Is statistically accurate. I mean,
Hold
when we
on.
talk to anti-gunners, we tell them don't deal with things that might happen. Deal with things that have happened. When we talk about passing laws to prevent gun misuse, we say, hey, quit dealing with hypotheticals. Deal with things that have actually happened, and let's come up with real solutions. So we kind of have to have the same mentality when we look at things like training. If you look at 999 self-defenses with firearms, and 998% of those people that were successful had no training beyond knowing how to use their gun, well, then you can't say that excessive training is necessary to be able to successfully defend yourself with your gun.
Not if you're not counting into
Hold
effect
on.
all the accounts where the better trained person was able to diffuse the situation.
Hold on. What we're talking about as far as with my quote signs up training here is someone going to a couple of days worth of classes and learning from an instructor some techniques and drills. That's not necessarily training. I mean, that's experiencing from a coach and from an educated instructor some skill sets. But training involves, in other words, you can go to a gym and you can hang out with, what do they call them, a coach or whatever, and have them show you all different ways to work out. But then working out involves every single day taking at least a portion of your day, an hour or whatever it happens to be, and working out. And then at the end you have results like better fitness. With firearms, if you want to say training, you can't say when you vacation at a 2-day class and experience a bunch of interesting stuff and then go home that somehow you're trained. All you've done is experience some interesting stuff that now if you take that and hone it and you practice it every single day, and more importantly you go out and experience other types of, because we're talking about martial arts basically, if you go out and experience other types of training and you incorporate that and you continually practice, you continuously do drills, you continuously spar, now you might be able to say you're practiced. And in that situation, I could understand someone being better off than if they had experienced training before. But the fact that you say that Noir, was talking about the fact that he didn't use a front sight and that, he reverted back, that's telling us that he hasn't actually become trained. He's actually reverted back to all the sloppy techniques that training is there to illustrate to you that are not ideal. So if he would have said, we got into this crazy situation, and then my years of experience and training allowed me to ignore the fast, movements and the quick, reactions of the adversary, and I was able to concentrate on my front sight and lay deliberate shots, and complete the scenario. That's a different situation. You could say that's a trained person coming into a situation differently, but I agree with Yankee 100% that in real life, you don't need to know much more than the operation of your firearm in order to be effective with a firearm. That's what makes firearms a magical little device that equals force from a little old lady or a single mom or an old vet to, 2 or 3 bad guys intent on taking your stuff.
But you do have to be shown how to train yourself, and that's the first step, is some sort of, whether it's just one person or a formal class, to show you how to, on your own, train yourself to do that daily run, as you put it.
What about it?
Saying it's better to have a mentor to actually show you the basics so that you can compound on the basics. But
yes. And then
we want to talk about training. I don't know if that's the topic here, but if we're going to talk about training, then there's all different theories on it. But I would think we can relate it to martial arts or cooking or driving or any other task that takes time behind the wheel or time behind the stove or time behind the gun to get techniques down and try different techniques in different situations. And again, you can learn how to play football. That doesn't make you trained in playing football. You play professional or college level sports for a few years and experience all the other stuff involved with football. Then you can say you're trained at football, right?
But someone has to show you at least once the proper way, and then it's up to you through repetition to do it again and again and again to actually do it well.
Yeah, but it's not dancing, so I could agree with you. I would definitely agree with you more if we were talking about how to fold napkins or dancing or something that didn't have results dependent on the actions of the assailant or the other individual, the adversary. But in that case, then it turns into a martial art, and you can practice all you want. You can be really good at your katas and your forms and your techniques and jump around and do all kinds of interesting stuff with mats and boards and stuff. But until you actually have a person that you're sparring with, You can have all the ideas you want in your head. That doesn't make you an actual adversary to the bad guy.
Oh, I agree. I'm not talking about ideas in the head. I'm talking about, as an example, your draw. That's muscle memory. That comes from hundreds, if not
Yeah,
thousands.
I hear you, but let me just really quick say, now you're wake up into a gunfight with stars going around in circles around your head. There's a cement block, underneath your neck, and there's two guys on top of you punching it. How is your perfect draw going to help you? The real training involves getting way out of the square range and way far from those basic techniques that an instructor will start with to show people, where they need to start.
You have to be a beginner before you become an intermediate, and you have to be an intermediate before you become an expert.
But you don't have to have someone teach you to be a beginner. I mean, I believe that most competent people can learn the basics on their own. In fact, most of the best shots I know are self-taught shooters. But my thing about training is, and I said this in my last video, learning to fast draw, rapid fire, place 8 shots on center of target in 3 seconds is less important, way less important, than just learning how to be aware of your surroundings and learning how to stay calm and make decisions under pressure. You can practice to where you are a maestro with a firearm, and if you're an idiot and you make bad decisions, you're going to get yourself shot.
Yeah, so, if you look at Jaeger, everybody likes to use Jaeger because we're all familiar with him. You look at his hierarchy of philosophy, it's mindset skill. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you can't deal with the situation, you can take all those skills to the bank and not have enough for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, it's like that poor guy that got shot at the Walmart. He may have been an expert with his gun. We don't know. I mean, I doubt he was, but he could have been, Jerry McGillicuddy or whatever that guy's name is. But
God.
But the fact that he wasn't aware.
McGillicuddy.
But the fact that he wasn't aware enough to make sure that, hey, there's not someone behind me that could be on that guy's side before he decided to act, he lost his life. And if he was the best marksman in the world, doesn't do you any good when someone you don't see shoots you in the ribs from close range.
That's still presumptive as to the real details of how she ended up behind him and what she was wearing and pushing and all that stuff. So we can't really say.
Nobody knows.
It doesn't matter. She was someone behind him in a store.
Don't judge that guy.
He controlled his weapon when he wasn't undercover, when he wasn't in a safe position. That is more important. Being able to make decisions like that under pressure, to be able to reckon, yeah, I've got a gun on my side. Should I draw it or should I not? Or are there things I should do first? You always use your brain before you use your finger.
All right. How about
as much as I recommend training because it's awesome and it's a great experience and people will gain from it, I also hesitate to consider anyone trained. Somebody in the chat said, so we think that, so what, going to a Jaeger class does not make you trained? Yeah, and I'm guaranteed that if you talk to James, he's going to say the same thing. That's just you've experienced some stuff. You've gotten some coaching, but that doesn't make you trained. I've got what do you call it, like a list of classes that I've been to and experienced and, whatever, like a resume of these things, but it doesn't mean I'm any better at gunfighting than just somebody who's naturally talented at not getting kicked in their face.
But G-Wes, if you've gone to training where, let's just say, as an example, they made you throw your gun into some mud or some water and you had to deal with reloads and slippery slides and that kind of stuff, versus the person that's never done training to get into a real-world gunfight in the middle of a downpour, let's just say, you're better prepared than that person that's never done training.
I definitely am set up to be at an advantage, but that doesn't guarantee I'm at an advantage.
No
I could
guarantee.
have been not paying attention for that moment, but for example, picking up a gun in a slippery situation or whatever, yeah, I've actually gone to classes where they tell you, here's, have you thought about that? There's a way to pick up a pistol the same way every time so that you're getting an operational pistol into your hand. But the real trick is, beyond knowing that little technique, is having the clarity of mind to do that when there's stars around your head and you're muddy and you just got shot and all the other horrible things that can happen in an altercation. So, I mean, I'm not discouraging people from taking training, but I'm definitely 100% with Yankee that people since the early the 1870s, the 1800s, and you go back and look at the first cartridge revolver was a little tiny Smith & Wesson. I just happen to know that because I just done some research. So the first cartridge revolver is a tiny little pocket revolver. trust me, nobody was doing tactical training back then, but I'll bet you that little tiny revolver was every bit as effective for that little old lady who had no training to pull it out and let one go into somebody's gut when they were raping her than if she would have had all the training in the world.
Well, are we splitting hairs about just saying where we're getting the information, whether it's self-taught or shown from someone else?
Nope, I think what Yankee's trying to say, and I'm definitely on his side, is that just the ability to be a functioning adult person and then give them a firearm is the same as if you had a frying pan. You wouldn't need to go to martial arts classes to know how to get a rapist off you with a frying pan. You wail on their head and shoulders with the frying pan until they quit raping you, right? So that doesn't require training. Maybe you could do it more efficiently or quicker, with training. But all I think Yankee's saying and what I'm saying is I don't want to ever require training because it doesn't give everyone such another level of expertise that they're walking around at some level. Let's look at police. Let's look at law enforcement. Let's look at real life. We don't have to go theoretical. Law enforcement has mandatory training. They have training to get their position. They don't become a sworn officer without a certain amount of training and passing a certain amount of tests and whatnot. They have periodic testing to make sure that their skill level is up. And depending on the officer, they're going to take advantage of that and do just the minimum, or they're going to go the other end and go real crazy. But are they flawless? No. They still have all kinds of issues. Again, if someone were to do a chat about this, maybe we could look at real numbers and find out that police, were 22% more likely to hit a bystander than a CCW, and those are almost all trained. So I don't think that training makes you any better. It just gives you that advantage when you're actually doing it every day. And
let's
if you
look also
lay hands on people, then sure, get some training. But if you're just a regular person, no. I don't want to live in a country. I think history has proven that we don't need to live in a country where we learn martial defense, martial arts, just to exist in society. We don't live in that society.
And let's also look at the downfall of this. I know it's fun. I love to play the what if zombie game, just because it's fun. What gun's best for zombies? And it's fun to people to play the tactical. I'm super trained, and this is if someone ever comes at me from 3 different directions with 3 guns, and I'm going to be able to do, a backflip while firing double-handed and blah blah blah.
Well, don't get exaggerating because training doesn't train you any of that. All training does is teach you how to manipulate your firearm. I'm
exaggerating for fun right here. It's fun to do this kind of stuff. Okay. But if we allow ourselves to start putting forth this mentality where we as supporters of the Second Amendment start creating this atmosphere where only the elite can handle a gun, only the highly trained can handle this weapon properly, well, then we set ourselves up to be the right be stripped from us, because most people are never going to be that highly trained elite person. So that's ammunition for the other side to say, see, even those guys think these things are so dangerous that it takes years and years of training to just be able to successfully or safely use one.
Well said.
I think maybe the confusion might be is, do you think that I'm feeling that it must be required? Because I don't know.
That was pretty much the topic of the conversation, at least earlier.
That was just hold on. That was a joke. We didn't say it was required, but the topic at hand was just training. How do you feel about it? Do you pursue training? Do you actively seek out training, whether it's from instructors or from other people with more experience? And like, I think that is important. What G-Web said, there's definitely a difference between going to a class and training every day. And that's what I want to get to is, if you people or most people in general train, when they go to the range, do they practice a quick draw or a point shoot scenario or up close and personal and not just look at the bullseye and shoot paper. So that was basically
martial arts again. And if you go to any kind of martial arts class, they might have you punch a punching bag or punch those little pads or whatever, but they don't suggest that that's an imitation of a real fight. That's why you have to then, at some point, spar in order to encounter all the variables in 360-degree world. So when we go to the range and we're shooting, it's not like we're getting to practice all that stuff, but I'm not discouraging anyone from doing that kind of practice or that kind of range time, because even if your square, range, meaning a range that doesn't have a 360-degree berm that lets you just, do any kind of shooting you want. If you're at a standard, range where you're shooting downrange into targets, even if you're, thinking about the draw and the stages, the steps of your draw or whatever it is that you might be trying to work on, then at least you've got that mindset going where you're thinking about shooting as I don't know another way to say it is, as more of a martial art than as a recreational, time waster or occupier. So I don't want to discourage people from going and getting training. And in fact, I think we've got a situation now with as many. Well, first there wasn't gunfighting for the longest time. There was cowboy stuff, and then people emulated that. But then somewhere, the First World War, they figured out that there are people that shoot better than other people, and these are the tactics that are, these are the things that they did to do that. And then it's been refined ever since then through law enforcement and through competition shooters. Everything comes together, gets mixed together, and we've got modern day gunfighting, and then that's evolved. And we're living in a time where the government paid mucho dollars to send guys into training to learn all this cool stuff, and then sent them overseas and put them in harm's way. And the guys that came back from all that, at least a portion of them, became instructors, and then took that newly formed, lessons plans, turned them into commercial things, either for contractors or for other military guys. Because again, we live in a unique time where guys in special operations were able to go out and take extracurricular training, for lack of a better word, non-actual military training, stuff that the military either didn't offer or didn't, hadn't yet approved or whatever. So now you've got guys that are from the military and from, using a firearm for a living, who've created curriculum, and then you've got guys who are learning from that, and then now we've got a situation where those guys are coming back and able to, evaluate which techniques and stuff that they learned was actually useful for them in their situations, and then they're developing into instructors and creating curriculum. So we live in a time where if you want to go out and learn how to shoot like a modern day, gunfighter or operator, whatever you want to call it, you get to learn from literally the people that have created it and had a chance to go out and test it. If you want to learn how to do cowboy action shooting, there's guys that shoot recreationally, like in the the dressing up like cowboys, and then there's guys that do it competitively, like Single Action Shooting Society. So we live in a great time, and I don't want to discourage anybody from training. In fact, I think training is one of the funnest things to do out there. I just want to keep, stopping before we get anywhere near, like Yankee keeps saying, where we put any kind of requirement on it or give it more
level heads
than it's worth.
I think one of the things we all start looking bad is when we take the Rambo mentality beyond the forum, and we start acting like we think that we live in such a dangerous time that we all gotta be, have a blade, a knife between our teeth and an AR in our hand and a grenade in our belt, and it's just not the reality of the world. It's just kind of like when you're buying a 1911 and someone asks me, hey, should I buy the $1,000 1911 or the $3,000 1911? I'm like, well, if you're a competitive shooter, that $3,000 1911 is going to be better for you. If you're shooting paper targets at 30 yards at the range, you're going to see no difference. You're going to be no more likely to hit the center target with the $3,000 one than with the $1,000 one. And the $3,000 one isn't 3 times better than the $1,000 one. It's like 5% better, not 300% better. Because the more you pay, the less you get for what you pay. And that's kind of the way training is. It's always good. It's always positive. But as far as real-world preparedness for what's likely to happen to you, or you're changing your odds of surviving a real-world scenario, the more you train, the less you actually get out of it, because you don't really get that much more prepared. You still have, a 99% something chance of surviving just by having a gun. So it's diminishing returns on your investment. That's why you have to find other reasons to do it. And like I say, if you're going to choose between the mental aspect of it or the physical aspect of the gun, always sharpen your mental aspects first once you have your basics down on your gun, because without your brain, your gun is useless.
Yeah, but there's no like karate fights in the streets or ninja battles, and people become black belts every day. So I mean,
yeah,
I'll go for it if you really want to train. It's all kinds of cool stuff to learn.
And it's fun and it's beneficial, but don't pretend that it's necessary. because it isn't necessary.
That's what we need. Is we need ammo belts of different colors that people can attain. And then you could say
Exactly.
like, I'm a black belt in Jaeger, and I'm like a green belt in this
I would go for that.
style.
We have just have like gun belts that are different colors. Like,
Well, the cool thing now is, like you said, G-Webs, if without an adversary or an opponent, you're you're just punching paper, you're just punching a bag. Well, now we have simunitions, we have airsoft, we have different weapons platforms available to us to recreate these live shooting situations.
As well as there's other steps in between, like outdoor ranges where you can move around, where it's okay to draw your weapon, where you can go from one plastic drum to another plastic drum. No, it's not the same thing, but again, it's getting closer and closer, and simunition is the latest and greatest, getting that much closer to
Honestly,
the
I think what you're talking about, Dano, is just way more, not just fun, but way more effective. Because by the time you get to what Stone Guy's talking about, now you've got safety gear on, and you have to do all this, and it's so fake and unrealistic by the time you actually shoot that you get way more out of it by just doing, like you're talking like 3-gun competitions and actually, having shot from like squatting over, putting your forehead on the ground, and you're basically shooting upside down underneath a barricade at like some sort of crazy prone. That doing that 12 or 15 times, I think, like Tech Daddy said earlier, you know a little bit. You have more confidence when you know you can flip over and shoot upside down like that, and know that that's the fastest way to get down there and get back up again. Than if you only went to one class or just went out on your own and just laid prone like an idiot, because you're not going to just lay prone in a wet street full of blood and glass and all kinds of crap.
Well, here's the thing I think people are missing the point of. I mean, it's all these things are awesome, and yes, there are some great techniques now to learn these skills. The point we're making is that how many people, let's just say this, how many people last year or in the last 10 years have been killed by being attacked by 6 ninjas in the United States? 0. So if you look at the guy that has spent his life training to fight off 6 ninjas, and the guy next to him that only knows how to fight off 1 ninja, is the guy that trained his whole life to fight off 6 ninjas more likely to survive his day to day than the guy that only knows how to fight off 1? No, he's not, because no one's ever died from being attacked by 6 ninjas. That doesn't mean that having the skill to fight off 6 ninjas isn't a desirable trait. It just means it doesn't really increase your odds of survival for that day.
I just have to comment that if 6 ninjas really did attack someone, you'd never know, and there would be no evidence left over, so it's not really a great example.
Well, ninjas, you don't see them coming, but I think they have good PR people.
Alrighty then, we solved that problem.
Oh, and before we get to the end here, because this sounds like it's pretty much over, because we've set you all straight now. That Stone Guy straight on his anti-gun agenda and his anti-freedom agenda. But
Right.
After this, I am going to be doing a podcast. It's going to be on the anti-gunners and the lies they tell. It's going to be revolving kind of around that, that 74 school shooting and other things that the anti-gun lobby likes to put forward as fact that is anything but. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to be in the chat, send me a PM or something, and I will send you a link to it.
There you go. That was pretty much it. I just, it was just going to be a short little podcast about training. Like I said, I think, take from it what you will. I think training's important. Obviously, I don't think it should be mandated or required, but I do think it's important not only for, your own peace of mind and your own confidence with a firearm.
Yeah, and just keep your priorities straight. It's like people always say, boy, if the end of the world came tomorrow and society collapsed, my gun skills are going to be the most valuable thing in the world. I'm like, being able to plow a field and raise some livestock will be way more important than your gunfighting skills. So keep your priorities in line.
Not if I'm the only one with the gun, but okay.
But you won't be. That's the thing. So
I do have one question before we wrap it up here, and it doesn't necessarily have to be everybody, but if you were to suggest, whether it be the top 3, 5, or whatever number you feel comfortable with, things that you feel are the most practical for people to train on, if they have the resources available, what are some of those things?
You
Point
mean like
shooting
a
is number
pistol
one.
or a rifle? Or?
Pistol. Well, it's like CCW.
I'd say point shooting, because 90% of the time you're not going to have the ability or the time to find your sights and squeeze off around. You're going to need to know an instinctual point of aim. As soon as your arm's extended, you know where that bullet's going without looking at sights.
I don't want to start a whole other thing, but I'm going to say shoot or no shoot scenarios I still find very worthwhile, especially if I can get into one that, I haven't experienced before. But, there's all kinds of those, with all the various ways you can get into situations in real life.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with G-Webs. I think the shoot no shoots are the best. I think the critical thinking training courses, like they especially offer those in the military a lot nowadays, they're invaluable. The course where the instructor smacks you on the back of the head and says, "No, dumbass, what you should have done is fucking run," because that'll happen about half the time in those scenarios. So I think that knowing that sometimes the best way to win a gun battle is not to get into one is something a lot of people miss. That's why I think that those like no shoot courses are awesome.
I'm gonna go with
Yes.
the unexpected aspect of it. Last couple videos I put up with the Florida firearms training stuff is them doing stuff to me while I'm going through the motions of trying to achieve a goal with shots, meaning, shoot this plate 3 times and then transition to another plate and shoot that 3 times. And while you're doing that, we're going to be jamming you up and stovepiping you and making you double feed. And just dealing with that stuff as an
So
example.
dealing with solving
Adversity.
malfunctions.
Adversity.
Yep.
The unexpected adversity.
Yep, the real life stuff. And that's all. Yankee kind of was kidding, I guess, earlier, but people think that tactical training is jumping out of cars and shooting from helicopters and that kind of thing, which I guess, that falls under the category. But everything I've ever experienced, pretty much everything I've ever experienced, unless it's an actual aerial platform class, is really just the basic reactions to malfunctions. There's like 3 types of malfunctions or 4 type of malfunctions that a class will come up with that a firearm can handle, or that'll happen with a firearm, and it's then basically reacting to those and keeping your attention on task. So I agree with you. Having distractions and stuff is super good training too.
I would just throw in just simply a confirmation of kind of what's already been said, but these shoot or no shoot situations. I remember back in the 70s, I was in a class where our part of our final is that the teacher or instructor was showing a movie of shoot don't shoot situations, and then he would stop the projector, and then you had to write down the scenario, what you saw, what you interpreted, and ultimately shoot don't shoot. And then we turned it on and it went straight into the next scenario. And of course now they have much more elaborate shoot don't shoot scenarios, of which I have not been able to avail myself to, but I would certainly love to get that sort of opportunity, because I think that is very, very critical. It's hard to say what's number one, but that's certainly up there.
All right.
We got to work on your skills on how to end a chat, young guy.
Well, I was making sure he was done. Yeah.
All wrapped up.
I had a good ending, and then we kept it going, so it fucked up my ending.
I tried to give you a heads up, but I put in the side chat. Time for one more question?
No, that's all good. I could just hit the stop broadcast and be like, "Yeah, that's it. Thanks for coming. See y'all next time." So everybody go check out Yankee Marshall. He's going to do his podcast. Send him a PM for links, and we'll see you on Thursday.